Hi, how are you? I'm Mr. Muso. Today we want to revise. We want to talk about different questions that we have in our syllabus. We are going to talk about the Vienna Settlement. We're going to attempt question on the Vienna Settlement. So make sure your pen and notebook is ready. I'm going to give you the question that we are going to look at on the Vienna Settlement of 1815. A triumph of the forces of reaction. A triumph of the forces of reaction. Comment on this verdict on the Vienna Settlement of 1815. A triumph of forces of reaction. Quotation mark. Comment on this verdict on the Vienna Settlement of 1815. Let's start by underlining the key words. Our keywords here are triumph, forces, reaction. Then we are commenting on this verdict on the Vienna Settlement of 1815. So before we answer this question, let's possibly talk about the background information on the Vienna Settlement. The Vienna Settlement was held in 1815 in Austria, the capital of Austria, Vienna. When the statesmen met on the Vienna Settlement, they wanted to redraw the map of Europe. They wanted to create buffer zones. They were interested in making sure that the balance of power was maintained. They were also interested in restoring the legitimate rulers who were removed by Napoleon during the Napoleonic era. They were also interested in ignoring nationalism and liberalism. So that is why they had to meet in 1815 after they defeated Napoleon Bonaparte. So that is what transpired on the Vienna Settlement of 1815. So we are saying that the Vienna Settlement was dominated by four important items. Number one, creation of buffer zones. Number two, the balance of power. Number three, restoration of legitimate rulers. Number four, we talk about ignorance of nationalism and liberalism. So we want to take these four items and see whether we can now answer our question based on these four items. A triumph, we are talking about, we are saying that it was a success. A triumph of forces of reaction. The Vienna Settlement, was it a reactionary settlement? Did they succeed when they had to react on the Vienna Settlement? Let's start with point number one. Creation of buffer zones. Buffer zones were barrier states. These were boundaries. Did they succeed when they created buffer zones? Was it a triumph? Was this a success? A success of reaction? Reacting, like what I'm doing here, seeing that I am reacting. Did they react? They had to react on the Vienna settlement. So the issue of buffer zone, was it a success? Yes, it was a success. Why? It is because the statesmen on the Vienna settlement, they were worried about future French aggression, so they do react. So it was a triumph of reaction. Why? It is because they wanted to protect themselves against future French aggression. Therefore, it clearly shows that the issue of buffer zone, it was a triumph of reaction. They had to act. How did they act? They had to say Belgium and Holland, they were united to create a buffer zone. Austria took 39 German states to create a buffer zone. Genoa was added to Piedmont to create a buffer zone, clearly showing us that the Vienna Settlement on the issue of buffer zones, it was a triumph of reaction. However, we see that this is true to a lesser extent, in the sense that the statesmen on the Vienna, they sacrificed the small states to their own advantage. When they reacted, Belgium, Holland being united, 39 German states being given to Austria, they sacrificed small states to their own advantage. So although it was a triumph of reaction, to a lesser extent, small states were sacrificed to their own advantage. Let's move on. Number two, we talk about the balance of power. Balance, it means 2 plus 2, you balance. 3 plus 3, you balance. So we are saying that the statesmen on the Vienna Settlement, they acted, they reacted. It was a triumphus of reaction. How did they do that? They had to equally distribute the territories, the spoils equally amongst themselves. How did they do that? Austria took 39 German states. Austria took Dalmatia. Austria took Naples, Sicily. She took also Parma, Modena, and Tuscany. Britain took Ceylon, Britain took Trinidad and Tobago, Britain took Heligoland. What about Prussia? She took areas along the Rhine. She was given Posen and 2/5 of what? Of Saxony. Then we talk about Prussia, we talk about Russia. She was given Finland. So they succeeded. Why? Because they shared these territories based on the map of 1804. 1804, gentlemen, we are here. Take areas that you possessed. We are being guided by the map of 1804. So by giving, Britain take these areas, Austria take these areas, Prussia take these areas, Russia take these areas. It was a triumphus of reaction. They too equally distribute these areas equally amongst themselves. But however, we see that there was an element of greed and selfishness when they reacted. For example, Austria taking 39 German states. For example, Britain taking areas only that enhanced the naval supremacy. So we can say that there was an element of greed and selfishness. So although it was a success, but to a less extent now, small states, we see that they were given to big states, so they acquire as many areas as possible. So it was a triumph to a lesser extent. Then we talk about number 3. Gentlemen, what should we do now? Let's talk about the restoration of legitimate rulers. Legitimate rulers, those rulers who were forcibly removed from their positions, from their thrones by Napoleon during the Napoleonic era. So here now they to react. Who was removed in Spain? Ferdinand. Ferdinand was restored. Who was removed in Naples? Ferdinand the First was removed, was replaced, was restored. Who was removed in the Papal States? The Pope was again restored in the Papal States. What should we do about France, gentlemen? Let's bring in Louis the 18th. So by so doing, we see Louis the 18th become the new leader of France. What about in Piedmont, Sardinia? Let's restore Victor Emmanuel. This was a success. It was a triumph of force of reaction. Why are we saying it was a triumph? These rulers, they were forcibly removed from their positions by Napoleon during the Napoleonic era. So here they reacted. How did they react? They to restore these rulers to their rightful position. Therefore, clearly showing us that this was a triumph of reaction. However, to a lesser extent, it was a success. Why? It is because some of these rulers were despotic in nature. For example, you talk about the Pope in the Papal States. He was a despotic leader. He was unpopular in the Papal States. You talk also about Ferdinand VII in Spain. He was unpopular. People in Spain preferred his son Charles IV to become the leader of Spain. So by so doing, we can say that it was a triumph of reaction to a lesser extent. Why? It is because some of these rulers that they restored were despotic and unpopular in their own countries. Let's talk about the ignorance of nationalism and liberalism. Gentlemen, let's ignore